You're in a heated discussion with someone. Instead of reacting, you pause the heart button for a second and you embrace the situation as it is. You accept it, you surrender to it, you trust it. It doesn't happen right away, so we have to unload the whole thing. And then we can open and embrace the whole thing with our love. And that leads automatically to more harmonious outcome, automatically.
Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. I have a very special guest here with us today, Arnaud Saint-Paul. Living between New York and Paris, a philanthropist and award-winning serial software, finance, and social impact entrepreneur for over 20 years, Arnaud started his quest at the age of 13 to live through his heart. Throughout his career, he has directly helped hundreds of individuals and inspired more than 50 million people internationally to connect to their heart. Creating the Heartful Method, he now helps corporate leaders and entrepreneurs build a new heart-based economy with clients around the globe. He's also the author of several books, including the upcoming book, The Heartful Method for Leaders. And I got to connect with Arnaud first just through hearing him on the Ad Heart podcast, which is a heart math podcast hosted by Dr. Deborah Rosman. And Arnaud, I really resonated with what you shared and the intention to bring compassion, to bring more of that energy into teams and organizations. So tell us a little bit more about what got you into this. Like, what happened when you were 13?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Vered.
First.
That's a real pleasure. What happened? I guess it's a confluence of different factors, right? I was mature enough in some way, at least unconsciously, and it brought me to a place where all of a sudden the truth that I was feeling inside superseded the ones that were offered to me outside, so to speak. In that case, it was more about my relationship with God. That for me was everywhere and not circumscribed to a specific building or a specific process of any kind. And that opened the door to not only first going on the journey of understanding who I am, like any teenager would do, but more importantly, for some reason, it felt important that I would find a way to bypass the mind and be directly connected to the source, the heart. And as we all know, that famous heart, the physical one, and in any case, is the very first organ that is grown in our body. Well, likewise, if we look at it from a more spiritual viewpoint, well, the heart is the heart, right? With a big H. And that's the source of everything. So we tend to forget it. But anyway, so for me, it was very important to get to that place. And it took 40 years to figure it out, or maybe 35 years to figure it out. And I worked in finance and technology and many different things. And at the same time, gradually trying to understand what is this human experience. And about 10 years ago, I discovered what my life purpose is, which is to help 1 billion people to open their heart to themselves. Why? Because it's what fills me with joy. And it happens to be the biggest systemic change I can offer to society. But that's a secondary thing, right? The very first one is to see a heart open is a bliss for me. And I wish that for everyone on this planet.
So how did you inspire 50 million people? Tell us, what is that?
That was a venture that did not really pan out from a financial standpoint, but we were lucky enough at the time to create content, memes at the time, most of the time, that were inspiring with images and texts. We created them with my wife. And we started to spread them out on social media. And sometimes you had one of these memes that went through 1 million people in a row. And amazing, right? So a thrill. Um, I did not have, I was not ready yet, I guess, to find a way to make it something that is sustainable. But we did, out of that, create a lot of content, a lot of following, and a lot of people really changing their lives through this little word that makes a difference because it's exactly at the right time.
Yeah.
And that was very powerful for me to experience as well, because there is that power in our heart that can be again triggered by anything that can therefore unveil itself and then shift a whole aspect of our lives, right? And it doesn't happen through effort. It happens because it's exactly the right moment. And
That's right. There's a readiness for it. Sometimes it's, you hear a song, you see a quote, you hear a poem, you see a flower, whatever it might be that can get you there. So I'd love to bring our attention even more to what it means to bring more of that heart coherence into organizations and teams in a very practical way. Because many of us have heard the words, we need more of that and it's helpful. What does that actually mean? So, in a practical sense, if you were guiding a leader to do that for themselves and for their teams,
yeah,
what would be different?
great question. And one of the challenges we have is to find actually people that are pragmatic and practical enough for them to go through our method. Because most of the time we tend to be so much up there in the concepts or in past stories or in future expectations that we forget that all happens now in this moment. And that's the key. Coherence is about inner alignment in this very moment with what is and not what I believe to be. And whether we're talking about business challenges or our day-to-day life, it's exactly the same. Coherence is about acceptance. It's about presence. It's about inner joy, inner peace, non-attachment, selflessness, unity, and purpose, which are, by the way, the 7 pillars of heart leadership, the way we frame it and we define it. The more I am at peace with myself, the more I accept myself, the more I enjoy with myself, the more I'm present, the more aligned I am, the more coherent I am. So this is me. Now, how does that apply to teams? Well, it's quite interesting. Let's still continue to work on me for a second. When I am incoherent, it's like these classical orchestras where you have, before the director comes in, you have all these instruments playing their own tunes, right? And they play their own melodies on their own, and they're having a lot of fun doing so. And this is basically what happens in the day-to-day in our jobs, where a pattern that is active still is playing itself out because I haven't yet found coherence in that specific aspect of my life. Yesterday, I met a lady who was telling me how a client of hers is actually asking all the time, pounding on her all the time. And she was thinking about, quitting and so on. I said, okay, has that happened a few times over? And yes, it's the case. Well, how was it with your father? Her father was doing the same. So she's repeating the same pattern. So you see, this is that little violoncello or whatever that is playing its own tune on its own until we become aware of it. And then we are able to make a decision of letting go of that. Once that happens, then there's coherence all of a sudden. And we can, use our common sense. Obviously, when we are in coherence, everything happens faster. It's easier to get access to whatever it is that we have a desire or purpose or a vision of, right? Because it flows. It's easy. It's like being in a river. We're being carried by the river. So the same happens for companies and teams. Instead of having all these different instruments playing their own tunes, what if we experience coherence? What we see today in our cohorts is that as they go through the method after week 2 or 3, all the different aspects of people's life that are completely independent, right? And we're doing that in our community most often. Their circumstances start to shape themselves to the core energy of the group, meaning the individual circumstances of every person's life start to become coherent together without specific intervention. They start becoming coherent together, and therefore the group can transform a lot faster and a lot stronger, and therefore bring more coherence again, further and further and further. So it's that exponential momentum, right, that we talk about in technology that is being experienced in the flesh. You can imagine very easily that when that happens, these teams are unstoppable because that coherence is so resonant. There is so much cohesion that anything that the team is working for or on will automatically accelerate and achieve itself much faster. So there is a direct correlation between coherence and impact, individually, for a team, for a company.
I'm curious about the story that you shared with the woman earlier that had that kind of behavior that she exhibited that was in part because of her upbringing and what she experienced. So what did she actually shift in order to show up in a more coherent way?
What she shared with me was that behavior from her client, right? Demanding from her every day or a few times a day things, whichever they are, we don't know. What I suggested to her, so when I realized that there was a pattern that she was repeating across characters, now it was the client, before it may have been the boyfriend, I don't know. I didn't have the time to go through all the details. What was clear to me is that the origin of that pattern that was showing up for this client started when she was very young with her dad, who was a very demanding person, which is okay. So the invitation was at the time that I suggested to her, and we don't know the results yet, but I know it usually works when that happens. I'll share another example afterwards related to that, and is forgive yourself. Forgive yourself when you were that young girl with your father. Forgive your father as well for having, and she told me, well, but I have a great relationship with my father. Yes, sure, you do have a great relationship now. But that young you was still suffering from that. And therefore started to show up here bits and pieces of that trauma, right? That was there and suffering yet within you, that little instrument that we were talking about earlier. Another example that is very, for me, illustrative. It's so I met a CEO at a conference, and after a few weeks, we had a chat because I could feel him. That would be an amazing person to work with. And indeed, he started to share with me the way he was seeing what we do and so on. It was beautiful. It was an explanation. And then he started to share with me that even if he has created an amazing corporation, he helps 50 million people in the mental health industry. Huge, right? From an impact perspective, it's amazing. He could not, for the life of him, raise funds. How interesting. So I said, okay, there's something there. So I asked him, what happened when you were a teenager? And he told me that, well, his parents, his life at that time was very much in, scrapping for money one way or another, always trying to make the ends meet all the time at 13. So I asked him, okay, why don't you do this and this and that, and we'll talk next week. Following week, we have another beautiful chat together, and he tells me, I didn't want to do what you told me, but I did do it. And the next day, I received a call from a foundation saying that they wanted to meet to see for potential investment or financing. Ta-da! That's how it works.
What was the specific shift? What specifically did he do?
What I asked him to do was, again, to forgive himself, forgive his parents for the situation in which he had to go through, right? Which was not easy at the time, of course. But now he's able to release that because it doesn't serve him anymore.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to illustrate here in both cases is that any challenge we have in the business world is never, ever, ever about business. It's always about the incoherence or an aspect that we have forgotten of ourselves that is looking for our attention now so that we can choose to release this or that. So that we, in other words, so that we can choose to expand beyond that limitation we have imposed on ourselves that is now dissonant with where we stand. And therefore, automatically we grow. Automatically we align further with our purpose, and it starts to happen in our day-to-day. Automatically we receive a call that was not expected, that this does this or that. Automatically we live with more peace, with more joy, with more presence, etc., etc. So not only qualitatively, but quantitatively, we have progress in the same day, in the same hour. It's really, that's what we are bringing here. So coherence is an amazing thing to live, and in a very pragmatic and practical way. Every single incident, so to speak, is an opportunity, it's a gift for us to look at ourselves and see where it is that we have that incoherence here or there, right? And so have a pause. So whenever you are in the situation of conflict or whatever, right? We have an amazing finger. You know, this finger here is, I think everybody has it, and most of us in any case. And we have a pause button. It's here on our heart. We can pause it. You know, you're in a heated discussion with someone. Instead of reacting, you pause the heart button for a second and you embrace the situation as it is. You accept it. You surrender to it. You trust it. You forgive yourself for what is happening now. Oops, that's a bit difficult sometimes. We may have compassion for what is unfolding. After having done the other ones, right, it doesn't happen right away. So we have to unload the whole thing. And then we can open and embrace the whole thing with our love. And that leads automatically to more harmonious outcome. Automatically. If we allow it, if we choose it, of course. If we just want to react, then so shall we. We all have these choices in our hands all the time to how do we want to react? Do we want to have a heartful conversations, the way I call them, where I become aware and conscious of what is actually unfolding, or at least not get into the swirl of emotions and thoughts because of this that has been triggering me? Or do I want to, get wrapped into this sequence of events and therefore feel the victim of this and that and that? So that's at the very basic emotional level. But then again, let's look at also at the source of that pattern so that we can release the very reason why this symptom showed up. Because again, all the things that we're living at work or at home, it doesn't matter, are symptoms. They are just an image. Again, that little instrument that is looking for your attention. And it only wants to join the symphony, but so far it was not possible. And so we welcome that dissonance, which is a gift. Oh, another example I just got this morning. One of our students, he told us about his neighbor has a very, very loud dog who throws himself at cars and whatever. So he went on a walk, and obviously the dog did that. And he started to walk out of the car, say to the dog, "Go to your house," and the dog did not, and so on and so forth. And so he was very, very annoyed by that situation. So he went on his walk, and he went into a swirl of emotions and thoughts and all that stuff about a dog. But the dog, the neighbor, the way he was seeing the dog and all that stuff, right? Which is very human and it's normal. Transpose the dog by the boss or whomever, it's exactly the same thing. After a few minutes, he was so grateful for the dog. Why? Because it has been the opportunity for him to become aware of all the different layers of judgments he was living that were still hidden to his perception. And so from there, he could make new choices of saying, okay, I don't need that, it's okay, etc. So now he has a dog master or a dog gift that helps him to be a better person.
Yeah. What a great example. Time we're in a moment of discord, emotional discord, we're incoherent, if you will. It is, as you said, an opportunity to look inward. What are those parts, those aspects of the symphony, these inner children, if you will, that need our attention? And there's a gift that they have for us. Every emotion, as you know, has a gift. Maybe if we're feeling angry about the dog, about something, maybe it's about or about a boss, a coworker, a partner, it's usually related to boundaries, not being held, or values that are violated, that kind of thing. So, every emotion has a gift. And once we get those resources, as you said, we can gain more and more momentum. We go to that next level of our evolution. And so will you share with us an example of discord in the context of a team, and how going into the heart specifically helped to create more harmony?
Yeah, so in our framework, one thing that I need to disclose is that the core premise of it is that in that world of coherence we're talking about, so one premise is that the whole world is vibrational. And therefore, for coherence to be accepted as a rule, right? It also means that everything is a reflection of everything. So if I resonate in a specific vibration, let's say anger, to take an example, therefore all the people around me will reflect the same anger, or vice versa, right? You can be the victim of that anger and therefore a bit subdued. In a team, to take that other example you mentioned, there's discord, as you mentioned. So that's the environment. And that discord that I am observing, me as the leader to take, or as part of the team, whichever, is a reflection of me. So the invitation from our viewpoint is, again, to look within, to see where is it that aspect of me that needs to see this. Why is it that discord is aligned with me in this moment? Because, again, I have no clue. Why is it that I put myself in that discord? It's not what I want, right? Initially, consciously speaking. However, it is the case. That's the truth. That's the reality. So the invitation is to look at, it's like the dog, right? It's seeing that as a symptom, seeing that there is a place within me that is in discord, in battle. And the faster I am able to make peace with that within me, the faster that discord is going to disappear or transform in one way or another. So that's at the very core what we believe is the reality. Now, obviously, more at the superficial level, we can still act what I call the heartful wheel that we mentioned earlier, where we embrace the discord, we trust it, we surrender it, and so on, et cetera, et cetera. And we can share that if you want in a visual for your audience, if you wish. But we can also do that with pleasure, meaning starting with disarm the emotional impact of the discord itself, and then look within to see where the discord lies within myself. Because what they are saying, the two camps, so to speak, in that discord, both seems to be true to me, but I haven't found my own peace about it, my own coherence. The moment I release that and I find my coherence, therefore it shall be when I live.
Absolutely. As above, so below, so to speak, whatever is going inside of us, disharmony or harmony is absolutely something that we perceive in our personal reality. And my question then is, how do we actually go inward and find true peace?
Well, I have a good news for you. We are already it. We have just forgotten it. Meaning, in other words, in a very practical manner. You remember the dog experience I just mentioned? So the person, the individual, was at peace. And then all of a sudden the dog came in, barked, and then she went on a swirl of emotions and thoughts, right? So all of a sudden his reality was one of fighting, of emotions, of etc., etc. The peace was still there. It was just completely forgotten. And then gradually he came back to that peace afterwards. So just to illustrate that, we always have that peace that is here. However, these little instruments that are playing these dissonances distract us from it. And therefore, they foster these discordances that we experience in the day-to-day, in our reality.
Yeah.
So from a very practical standpoint, first and foremost, it's not something that we're looking to acquire. We're not here to acquire peace, but to come back to it, which is much easier. By fostering coherence, the way we've explored earlier, using the heartful wheel or looking for the source of the pattern that is being shown in this moment, automatically I get into more coherence. Automatically I am more at peace with myself. So here we go back to the heart math techniques, for instance. We have this inner natural rhythm maker, so to speak, which is our breath. Well, our heart. So when you could put your hand to your heart and you feel it, you feel the rhythm, the beats. That's one aspect. Or more often than not, when you are in these states that you are just mentioning, your breath is much more accelerated. It's much shorter as well. The amplitude is much shorter. So by coming back to a deeper breathing, a slower breathing, will automatically help not only the heart-brain coherence, but also more importantly, help you to be here now. And to be here now, in the simplicity of now. That's very important. So when I'm in the simplicity of now, then everything can happen. It doesn't really matter because I'm here now. And then I can start to reconsider this aspect of me that is expressing itself from a very different viewpoint.
Thank you for kind of sharing that, because it really shows our power. And the fact that if we consider that we're all connected, as you said, on a vibrational level and a very real level, what that means is that if somebody in my life is in some version of what I would perceive to be discord, that there's something for me to be curious about. So I'm curious if you have any other kind of stories to share with us.
Another CEO who had, it's a bit of an extreme, but his company's website was plagiarized by another company. Everything on their website was on under that other brand, which is a bit messy, right? It's slightly messy. And that was a big issue, obviously. So we had a session and we went into that issue. And there again, we went to the teenagers of that individual, and who happened, as any teenager, sometimes we have a little bit of kleptomania, and for some whatever, and well, he did that a little bit, and he felt guilty about it, which therefore brought him to a lack of integrity, which still to that day was there, active. So there we had the guilt, or the guilt and the lack of integrity that created that pattern that led to that event. Okay, so far so good, right? That, let's say, that's a theory to start with. We did the work to release that lack of integrity and guilt in that session. What happened afterwards was very interesting, because in the following week, because we work on a weekly basis, not only did the company officially in a convention publicly said to everyone, we apologize, the whole thing went out without, the legal stuff that could have happened very easily, as everybody can imagine. But also in that same week, and it was the very first time that happened to them, was an offer for a 9-figure contract that went onto the desk of that CEO. So very pragmatically, again, business was becoming bigger thanks to the work he was doing. You could not correlate it to it, yes, sure, but it was strong enough synchronicity or coherence or incidence so that it's noticeable in any case, one way or another. So that's example number one. Example number two, in my life, quite recently actually, in the development of our company, we went recently in a phase of really jumping to a new height in terms of growth, which, as for any leader or CEO, can push the limits one way or another, right? And so what unfolded after that was through three people that are different people that are not connected to each other at all. I had to test these limits. Basically, so the first one really pushed my boundaries. So she was taking all the space, and I didn't have that much space for myself. The second one, so the first one was working with me. The second one is a guide who started to say that he wanted this and that, a bit like the star, right? And me trying to give, as much as we can to everyone what they need, not a problem. And the third and last one, fortunately, was my life partner, who started to say a few things that were, in theory, stopping our relationship. And all of them portraying like the me, like the I want this for me, for myself, and so that took this. So when I looked at the whole pattern, I say, oh, okay, there's a problem there. One, I see the other as a me, like always about their thing, and two, I believe to be quite generous. And it seems that's not enough, clearly. But I went into finding out, where does my generosity comes from? And I could see in me and my father, in that case, an aspect, a vibration of, I'm generous because I want you to play with me, to come with me, right? So it's a interested generosity, so to speak. So I was able to make peace with that aspect of myself. And after that, all the three people started to change in their behavior related to me. And I'm still with my partner, thank you very much. And the guide came we found an agreement, and the other person too. So it's all good. And not because I changed my behavior, at least that's not the way I live it and I feel it, but because I was able to fine tune on this aspect of generosity, that I'm truly generous without looking for an interest, even if it wasn't a conscious one. So this would be my second example.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing these examples. And I imagine that when people consider this possibility that their outside world is indeed a projection of their inner world, and there's no fault there. Everything is purposeful. If there are things that we've done that we may regret, knowing we did the best that we could, it's all an opportunity for us to grow and evolve. So there's only love. When they look back at their life, to notice times where maybe they shifted their energy, maybe they forgave someone, maybe they found peace or just at least acceptance in something, maybe they let go of a grievance or something, that not only did their own physiology and well-being change because just they felt lighter, it's like just a load came off. Also, the things and the people around them began to change. This doesn't mean that it happens right away. And it happens at the very least. Their response to what people do, even if people don't change, their perception of that, their own experience of the other has completely changed. So in any case, the inner changes everything. Because it is not the experiences in our life, it's the stories that we tell ourselves that deplete our energy, that, activate, negative emotions. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I have a very special place in my heart for getting more of these practices, more of these understandings into the corporate world, because a lot of people are suffering. There's so much change in the age of AI. My goodness. I mean, there's a lot for people's nervous system to handle. And in order for us to have the new, higher solutions that will create a better future for us collectively, we need better decisions. We need people to not operate out of fear, and instead of that, to operate out of love, out of unity, out of that understanding that we are indeed connected. They are not my enemy. They are my brothers and sisters, in a sense of that they're here to teach me something about myself. So Arnaud, thank you for your time today. And how can our listeners learn even more about your programs, your books, everything that you share?
Very simply, they can go to our website, tapuat.com, tapuat.com, tapuat.com. There is an assessment there, the Heart Leadership Assessment, that you can go through. It's 5 minutes, and it's very, very, very interesting and entertaining, hopefully. And there you can see the community offer for individual leaders who wants to really make a difference for themselves. Or we obviously also have the services for corporations to do the same. And more importantly, to get into the Heart Leadership Index, which is that index that will show how corporations are doing in terms of coherence and impact, which is we're going to release that next year, indexing the top 20,000 companies. And that's very exciting.
Well, thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing all that you share, these wonderful stories and practices. And I wish you and your team all the best. And
thank you.
Bring more heart, more love, more harmony to our planet. Hey, Game Changers! I hope you enjoyed this episode with Arnaud. If you want to learn even more about unlocking the power of your heart, I invite you to tune in to episode 41 with Dr. Deborah Rosman. All my love.